Who are the criminals who just can't help but commit a crime? Let's find out, starting with number 6. Call off the wedding. Bride-to-be Rachel Doran was on the run after stealing £11,000 from her groom's friends. The funds were meant for a bachelor party and had been raised by the friends of her husband-to-be. Each friend contributed £440 for a trip to Ibiza, where the groom, the best man, and all his friends would have fun. The trip was supposed to be arranged by Rachel, and all the money contributed had been sent to her. Each friend had put in their share, and then, on the day of the trip, they met at a local pub to drink. After grabbing a few pints, they got onto a bus and went to the airport. It was when they got to the airport that they discovered that there was no trip to Ibiza. Since the boys had been planning the trip for 6 months, they decided to make the best out of it by booking a last-minute flight anyway. However, the groom, Chris Mann, couldn't go with them because he was way too upset by the betrayal of his bride-to-be. Chris tried calling her, but soon figured out that she was on the run. That's when he discovered something else. As it turns out, Rachel, his bride-to-be, had already been arrested for credit card fraud. She'd copied the credit card details of a customer at a hotel she worked at and used it. She'd already been arrested, but had been released on bail. It was while she was on bail that Chris discovered that she'd ripped off him and his friends. Rachel had also planned a bachelorette party with her friends the next month and had charged them each £300. They'd all paid in, so she took their money too and was nowhere to be seen. She was on the run with a total of £13,000. Some thought that Rachel may have orchestrated the fraud because she thought Chris had cheated on her. But we somehow don't think that's likely because if Chris's cheating was the reason she stole from his friends, what was the reason she committed the original credit fraud? Why did she scam her friends as well? It just doesn't add up. Of course, the police were called and are now searching for her at the time of this video. Rachel, if you didn't want your man to have a bachelor party, we're sure there are plenty of non-criminal ways to make that happen. Number 5. All about accountability. Massie Passey completely took advantage of her position as a payroll manager and paid herself thousands of pounds to fuel her unsavory lifestyle. Massie was pregnant when she was eventually caught, but had started paying herself through hundreds of fraudulent transactions 3 years prior. She'd stolen so much money that the company she worked for couldn't even afford to provide bonuses for its staff. Massie carried out the scam by switching the bank details of employees and sending their wages and bonuses to her account instead. She went undetected for 3 years and was only caught after a finance manager noticed that employee bank details had been entered incorrectly. The audit that followed discovered that she'd stolen about £290,000 from the company through 501 transactions. The police were quickly involved and she soon admitted to her crime. When asked why she did it, Massie claimed that a bad relationship and a terminated pregnancy had driven her to her terrible habits. Unfortunately, she also had huge debts to cover around the same time period. So, she decided to start stealing money to cover her debts and also fund her substance habit. Despite being 8 months pregnant during her sentencing, the presiding judge decided to sentence her to 30 months in jail. So we can all understand how bad relationships can really mess up your life. If you haven't had it happen personally, you may have been close to someone who has. We can also understand being covered in debt, and a few of us can fully understand the emotional impact of losing a pregnancy. All of that could add up to a recipe for impulsive and dangerous behavior. But she also accepted a trusted position and stole so much that her company and employees were seriously affected. Tell us what you think. Should we feel a little bad for her? Let us know in the comments. Number 4. Chop Shop. 3 members of the same family have pled guilty to a conspiracy where they facilitated the shipping of $600 million worth of stolen catalytic converters from California to New Jersey. Tu Su Vang, Andrew Vang, and their mother, Monica Mua, have now owned up to the crimes they committed while running their so-called business in California. The family operated an auto repair shop from their home where they mainly ran the scam. They were supplied by local thieves in the area and then shipped the converters from California California to New Jersey. The three family members were paid a total of $38 million for the valuable car parts that they helped traffic. The family often shipped the converters to DG Auto in New Jersey. The company then made money by extracting precious metal powders from the converters and selling them to a metal refinery. Those precious metals, usually platinum, rhodium, or palladium, are more valuable than gold, and their value has only been increasing. Catalytic converters are a part of a vehicle's exhaust system and reduce toxic gas and pollutants from the engine, meaning they're essential parts of most vehicles. The thieves who steal them usually can grab converters from vehicles in less than a minute, so it's very difficult to stop them. The theft of these converters has exponentially risen with the steep increase in value of the precious metals used to make them. The police have now cracked down on the entire stealing and trafficking operation, and the three family members who pleaded guilty are only the first of 21 suspects to do so. Andrew Vang and Ms. Mua each face a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison if convicted, and Tusu Vang could see up to 20 years in prison and could be charged with a $500,000 fine as well. So wait, the guy running an unlicensed auto shop out of the garage house isn't legit? No way! It's kind of surprising they weren't caught sooner. Number 3. The worst neighbor. Jessica Henry scammed a Coast Guard veteran of 22 years out of more than $50,000. The scam began when Jessica met the veteran, 82-year-old Wallace Breland, at an apartment complex. She told him that she didn't have money to feed her 2 children and transportation to take them to school, so he took pity on her and gave her some money. He also started driving her kids to school, because Wallace Breland is a good dude, if not a bit naive. But guys like this are what makes the world go round. Seriously, he was driving her kids to school? But that wasn't enough for greedy Jessica. Wallace soon moved to another apartment, but 6 months later, he got a message from Jessica claiming she'd been arrested and needed money for urine tests for her probation officer. She said she needed to get $350 daily for these tests. But of course, this was all a lie. Wallace, just being a good man thinking he was helping someone in need, decided to cover the bill. Jessica's boyfriend, Gregory Dushan, also got involved and started calling Wallace, acting like the probation officer. He began to forcefully demand money for probation costs and sometimes asked for as much as $1,500 in fees. When Wallace said he didn't have money, Dushan would threaten to seize his car and throw him in prison. Wallace got a little freaked out, so he took out a loan at a cash advance place just to pay Dushan. Whenever Dushan would threaten Wallace, Jessica would show up to collect the money. Eventually, Wallace started running out of money, became critically depressed, and complained about the situation to his veteran buddies, who got the police involved. That's when Wallace realized that Jessica and her boyfriend had scammed him of more than $50,000 in fake fees. Dushan had already seized Wallace's car, and by seized, we mean he stole it. When the police finally found the car, they found Dushan driving it, and it was pretty clear the couple was scamming Wallace. They were both arrested, and soon, Jessica confessed to her crimes. But she wasn't done playing her games. While in jail, she called Wallace and begged him to pay her $1,000 bond to leave prison. He paid the bond and also gave her some money despite the court telling Jessica not to contact. After the police found out that she'd contacted him, she was arrested again. Despite that, she still called Wallace from prison and asked him to tell the judge to let her go. She also somehow got Wallace to mail a handwritten note to the judge asking to free her. Thankfully, the judge saw right through that. Court took all of this into consideration and sentenced Jessica to 10 years in prison for disobeying court orders several times. She was also unlikely to ever pay Wallace back, even if she was out of jail, given her claimed health problems, his age, and the amount of money she stole. The fact that she actually thought getting Wallace to handwrite a letter to the judge was a good idea was actually really stupid. All it did was prove that once she was out, she would just continue scamming that poor man. Have fun in prison, Jessica. Number 2. The worst gardener. Russell Joy stole almost £200,000 from a 98-year-old widow whom he worked for as a gardener. Joy was hired as a gardener by Mary Bradian in 2008, and they had an initially good working relationship, until Joy got greedy and decided to begin an elaborate scam that would net him thousands of pounds. Mrs. Brady had relied on Joy for not only gardening, but also for other odd jobs around the house. She soon started trusting him with even more personal affairs, and 6 years later, he decided it was time to start taking advantage of that relationship. First, Joy convinced her to write checks for up to £100,000 and then set up a direct debit from her account to pay his car insurance. He also got her to give him access to her bank card and PIN so that he could do her shopping for her. Joy did do the shopping, but he also made sure to spend money on himself. He withdrew £300 from her account on 107 different occasions, which totals over £32,000. Joy also convinced her to cash in investment bonds that her husband had and pretended to be her grandson in calls with the company she got the bonds through. He arranged 5 policies worth £229,805 to be cashed in, and he took some of that money for himself. Mrs. Brady had suffered from some hearing loss since she was 98, so Joy was able to exploit that to convince her to do things she wouldn't want. So what did he use all this money for? It may shock you to learn that Joy didn't donate it to charity or use it for cancer research. Instead, he used the money to buy himself a nice Land Rover, go on expensive vacations to Hong Kong and Thailand, and buy himself 12 expensive designer watches. Just the sort of thing you'd expect a fraud like that to do. But Joy couldn't get away with his scam forever. Mrs. Brady's family started looking into her finances to organize her care after she had 2 falls, and they discovered his massive fraud. At first, Joy claimed that the withdrawals and payments had been gifts given with Mrs. Brady's understanding, but he later admitted to 6 counts of fraud once the police were involved. He was later sentenced to spend 5 years and 1 month in prison, and tragically, Mrs. Brady passed away before the resolution of the trial, never getting the justice she deserved. We somehow don't think there'd be a lot of opportunities for Joy to wear his expensive watches in prison. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release to find out how the mob started running their own crypto scams. Number 1. The Queen of Scams. Serial scammer Jessica Vlasman was brought up on charges after stealing the identity of a cancer patient after getting busted for scamming 4 years earlier. In the first scheme, she claimed to be a bridal makeup and hair artist. She would advertise herself to the brides, getting them to pay some of the agreed fees up front, and then never show up. She did this through a fake company she called My Queen of Diamonds. The company had a website she took bookings through, and it was a generally smooth sailing scam for her, until journalists broke the news that Vlasman had stolen around £7,500 through her company. Once investigators broke the news, other brides who had gotten scammed by Vlasman came out to tell their stories. Unfortunately, Vlasman was able to slip through the legal cracks without getting arrested. Her victims were too poor to sue, and prosecuting her was difficult. Around this time, the journalists working on the case also found that Vlasman had pretended to be an agent to scam a musician from outside the state. The musician paid her $10,000 to represent him as an agent, but after a while he realized that she was fraudulent. A few years after getting away with that scheme, Vlasman surfaced again. This time she was getting arrested and prosecuted for identity theft. She'd met her victim at a hotel, begged her to use her card to pay for a hotel room, and then promptly stole her identity. She stayed at the hotel for a while until the staff got the police involved and got her arrested. Soon they realized that Vlasman was the same woman who'd gotten away with several fraudulent crimes in the past. Obviously, Vlasman, like many of these characters, just can't seem to help herself, which asks the question, can these people change? Do we really live in a world where people just are and some need to be kept away from everyone else? Or is there really the possibility of redemption and meaningful change? Let us know in the comments below. John Caruso was not one for modesty. As the self-proclaimed Michael Jordan of crypto trading, Caruso showed off his successful returns on Instagram, with his associates sharing their new tattoos, sports cars, and nightclub jaunts. They used hashtags like grind state and level up with pictures taken at nightclubs or fitness centers to lure investors who sought a similar lifestyle. But Caruso, at the scheme's helm, didn't actually know anything about trading. Caruso is a short guy with small brown eyes. He wears the same brand names, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, that his associates wear. In a picture with his employees in front of a private jet, Caruso looks nervous and out of place, like someone's younger brother. As it turns out, Caruso is far from a crypto king. He was born in 1991 in Islip, New York, to John Albert Caruso, who in 2015 was named as a high-ranking member of the Colombo crime family. John had an extensive criminal record dating back to the 1970s, including at least 7 misdemeanors and 9 felonies such as grand larceny, fraud, forgery, and weapons charges. He went to prison several times. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree in the Caruso family. The father-son duo united in an extortion scheme in 2009 in which they threatened to seriously hurt a man if he didn't pay them $200,000. Caruso received 5 years probation for the crime, but violated his probation 3 times and received a sentence of 3 years in prison. He was released in 2017 after serving 20 months and then began his new career as an entrepreneur. Zach Salter is the son of record producer Dan Salter, whose clients included big names like Lil Wayne, Sheryl Crow, DJ Khaled, the Jonas Brothers, and DMX. Salter had a privileged upbringing and knew that he needed to make big money if he wanted to maintain his lifestyle he was brought up in. So when he met Caruso, they learned they had a lot in common. At first, Caruso and Salter bonded over their mutual interest in crypto investing and trading. They boasted about getting such great results that apparently others started asking them to invest on their behalf. Caruso branded himself as a clever cryptocurrency expert, and Salter his sweet-talking salesman counterpart. Together, they made the perfect team. They decided to go into business together and founded Zima Digital Assets, a company that prided itself on earning big returns on small investments for people who wanted to invest in cryptocurrency but just didn't know how or where to start. In 2019, Zima Digital Assets was known as a premier cryptocurrency fund and one of the fastest-growing investment funds in the world. Caruso said he owed his success to the strategy of maximizing returns in times of Bitcoin volatility. In media and news outlets, he started calling himself the Michael Jordan of cryptocurrency trading. Caruso met C.J. Wilson, a former Major League Baseball pitcher who owned car dealerships on the side. Caruso started coming in regularly to Wilson's dealerships to buy, sell, and borrow cars. The two eventually grew to be close friends and went on trips together with Salter. Eventually, Caruso offered Wilson a job with Zima Digital Assets as the company's chief operating officer. He accepted and stepped down from his role as general manager of the Porsche store. Though he had the fancy title, Wilson didn't actually do much for the company. He never lived in Arizona and sometimes went days without doing anything for Zima. One of Salter's roles in the company was basically to make up jobs and fake labels for people. Soon, the Caruso-Salter duo were featured across the glossy pages of magazines and gracing the front pages of newspapers. And in today's world, their marketing strategy also relied heavily on social media. Salter shilled for his company on Instagram with the hashtag ZDA and investment information just a DM away. Salter told an investor that he had a team of 7 analysts and 2 executive traders working constantly to manage the crypto hedge fund. He promised 100% satisfaction on all of his investments. They not only used Instagram to advertise their business, but also to flaunt their wealth as proof of their success. Salter's Instagram grid featured brand new cars and multi-million-dollar assets. One of his Instagram stories listed Zima's investments at $1 billion. And it seemed like the company was doing very well for itself. In 2019, they sponsored carts and guitars, striking out poverty, and then held a haunted mansion charity costume party. Salter also boasted in an interview about how Zima held a fundraiser for refugees in Bangladesh and reportedly raised $330,000. They recruited influencers like John Bowles, who listed himself as an executive board member, and posted frequently on social media about investment opportunities with a guaranteed 18% return. But in reality, it was all just a glorified Ponzi scheme. Arizona-based financial advisor Richard Hoffman got on the bandwagon and encouraged his clients to invest with Zima Digital Assets. Turns out, Caruso and Salter offered Hoffman $1.5 million in low-interest loans in exchange for him bringing in investors. In 2019, Hoffman successfully convinced 8 clients to invest $650,000 in Zima, with Hoffman receiving a commission close to $200,000. This large commission encouraged Hoffman to continue hassling prospective investors via texts, calls, and emails. But in his efforts to persuade clients, he conveniently forgot to mention that he owed Zima tens of thousands of dollars and that he was getting a pretty generous kickback for every client who he successfully recruited. In August 2019, one client asked Hoffman if he was getting paid to recruit investors for Zima, to which he answered that he could only receive a 1% commission. Far from the truth. This client eventually invested more than $350,000. Hoffman's employer, Ameriprise, blocked him from referring any of his clients to Zima. So he got around it by using personal email addresses and submitted false information about his outside business activities and the reasons why he was transferring money out of his clients' accounts. Ameriprise was growing suspicious of these transfers and planned to call 2 of Hoffman's clients to find out the real reason. Hoffman somehow convinced them not to tell the truth. By the time Salter and Caruso were arrested in 2020, Hoffman's clients had already invested more than $600,000 in Zima. Salter and Caruso blew through $4.5 million on a lavish lifestyle. They used customers' money to go in on a mansion together, take joyrides in exotic sports cars, and go on trips in private jets. They weren't shy about posting their luxurious activities on Instagram, and even used them as alleged proof that their company was doing so well. Caruso bought a Lamborghini Urus, and Salter bought a Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. Cigar Aficionado magazine did a feature on Caruso and Salter and showed a picture of them posing in front of their bright blue and orange sports car on a tile driveway. The Secret Service discovered that they went to Las Vegas multiple times and spent nearly $1.5 million gambling. At the helm of what was supposed to be one of the country's fastest growing crypto investment firms, you would think that Salter was extremely busy, but that didn't seem to be the case, as he had more than enough time to pursue his music career on the side. He dropped Mixtape, Sweet Talker, and Sweet Talker 2. A bit ironic now, considering how he sweet-talked people into a phony crypto investment scheme. He hired professional videographers to shoot music videos of him singing slow songs. When he shared the YouTube video for his song Zaddy, he got more than 127,000 likes on Facebook. Most of his fans appeared to live outside the US, commenting all sorts of compliments in their native languages. Meanwhile, the leaders of Zima Assets were spending all of their profits. $350,000 on private jets, another $350,000 on luxury car rentals, $150,000 for Salter's Paradise Valley mansion rental. Records show Caruso reported a meager $22,000 in income in 2018, and Salter reported none. The math seems a bit off for people who blew $1.4 million on gambling in Vegas. Investigators found no proof that Caruso and Salter ever invested any money in cryptocurrency. Salter worked hard to manufacture the perfect reputation, one that painted him as a selfless soul, even while he was stealing the hard-earned money of so many of his clients. One magazine called him humble and praised how discreet he was about his involvement in charity. Salter liked to give off the air that he was a philanthropist who flew under the radar, quietly donating large sums of money without seeking the praise and recognition that goes along with it. According to him, giving back was one of his main purposes in life. He even got a tattoo after dropping out of college to remind him of his goal to feed the hungry. In a media interview, Salter bragged about Zima's consistent involvement in at least 3 to 4 charities at any given time. In January of 2022, the United States Secret Service arrested Salter and Caruso in Arizona on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. The Fed started watching them as early as June 2019 after an investigator learned that Caruso was sending millions of dollars from Zima's business account to his own and then using the money for personal use. As soon as social media caught wind of the investigation, the internet detectives got to work digging up mountains of incriminating evidence. Users found pictures of Caruso and Salter on private jets, in multi-million-dollar mansions and sports cars. Investigators sent search warrants to Google and Facebook, which uncovered even more evidence, much of it consisting of false promises about investment opportunities and returns. Multiple banks received grand jury subpoenas. One of Salter's many side gigs was a music manager for Lacey K. Summers, a former MMA ring girl turned aspiring singer who also invested in Zima. As an Instagram fitness influencer, Summers took to social media to boast about her Zima investments and how she bought nearly everything she owns: her car, her house, her clothes, using the money she earned from cryptocurrency investments. She encouraged many of her 10 million followers to take a chance on Zima. They lost their money, and she did too. Salter and Caruso both chose to plead not guilty to the charges. Salters, who didn't have a criminal record, was released on bail. Caruso, on the other hand, with a criminal record as long as a CVS receipt, had no such luck. The court rejected his request for a pretrial release, in addition to a second emergency motion for his release due to a recent COVID-19 outbreak at his prison, the Florence Correctional Center. In 2021, the U.S. government filed its opposition to Caruso's requests. As a last-ditch attempt of using a get-out-of-jail-free card, Caruso said that he was simply, quote, too rich to spend time behind bars. He argued that he owns cryptocurrency wallets valued at over $850 million that need to be carefully monitored in order to protect his and his clients' investments. One of the main reasons the government wouldn't let Caruso out of jail, besides for his extensive criminal background, includes the fact that any money he has in crypto could easily be accessible if he were to flee the country. A major draw for Bitcoin is the fact that it's essentially unregulated and accessible anywhere in the world. If Caruso fled the United States while on pretrial release, he could easily hide out somewhere living off his supposed Bitcoin fortune. One company, Voltaire Painted Sunset LLC, filed a civil suit against Caruso and Salter, claiming that they invested $160,000 and were supposed to get a minimum of $3,000 per month in returns. They didn't receive most of this money, but it stopped after Caruso and Salter went to prison. Many of their loyal associates and followers who once praised their crypto knowledge made public apologies for encouraging people to invest in a Ponzi scheme that cost them their life savings. Zima assets only lasted from 2018 to 2020, a short-lived reign for the crypto king. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section which group of people you think is worse, politicians or scammers.